All right. Good morning. The Classic Fairy Tales by Iona and Peter Opie. This morning's story is The Little Red Riding Hood. And this is a short one, so let's begin with a little background. The tale of Little Red Riding Hood is remarkable both for its extraordinary popularity and for the fact that no version of the story has been found prior to Perrault's manuscript of 1695, and its subsequent publication in Histoire au Conte du Temps Passé, 1697. Despite the naivety of the tale, or perhaps because of it, Little Red Riding Hood rapidly became known to English children in the 18th century, even when they did not possess a copy of Perrault's tales. It was anthologized in, for instance, A Pretty Book for Children, or An Easy Guide to the English Tongue, first issued about 1744, and in The Top Book of All, for Little Masters and Misses, published about 1760, while some of the earliest of the woodcuts attributed to Thomas Bewick, born 1753, depict scenes from the story. Moreover, Charles Dibdin, as early as 1803, made Red Riding Hood, or The Wolf Robber, the subject of a pantomime, and Charles Dickens confessed that Little Red Riding Hood was his first love. If only he could have married her, he felt, I should have known perfect bliss. And he bitterly deplored the cruel and treachery of that dissembling wolf who ate her grandmother without making any impression on his appetite, and then ate her after making that ferocious joke about his teeth. If the conjectures of the symbolists and mythologists who see in this tale either a seduction scene or the dawn being devoured by the night can be dismissed, which they can, it will be appreciated that the final dialogue alone between the wolf and the little heroine is what raises the story to the classic level. It is a dialogue that can be compared with that in the Elder Edda of the 13th century, where Loki has to explain to the giant Thrym why his would-be bride Freyja, who is Thor in disguise, possesses such unladylike characteristics. I have never seen a bride eat so much and drink so much, remarks Thrym, when she has tucked into an ox and ate salmon. It is because she has had such a longing to see you, she has not eaten for 8 days, explains Loki. Why are Freyja's eyes so ghastly, asks Thrym, catching a glimpse of them beneath her veil. It is because she has had such a longing to see you, replies Loki. She has had no sleep for 8 nights. The deception succeeds so that Thor manages to slaughter the giant, and Perrault was in no doubt either about Red Riding Hood's fate. His story ends with unsentimental abruptness. Étant descend ses morts, ces méchants loups de jeta sur le petit chaperon rouge et la mangia. Subsequent tellers of the tale, however, have disagreed about whether Red Riding Hood should be killed or saved, and if saved, by whom, and if swallowed, whether she alone, or her grandmother as well, should be allowed to survive the ordeal. Thus, Mrs. Craik, author of John Halifax Gentleman, a mother of much good sense, who rendered the fairy tales anew in 1863, did not feel the tale required a happy ending. In Madame de Châtelain's Merry Tales for Little Folk, 1868, on the other hand, the wolf was just about to spring at Little Red Riding Hood when a wasp stung his nostril, which gave a signal to a tomtit, which warned a huntsman, who let fly an arrow that struck the wolf right through the ear and killed him on the spot. In Felix Summerlee's edition in the early 1840s, in which the story is set firmly on English soil, near the forest in Hampshire, which is called the New Forest, Little Red Riding Hood screamed as loudly as she could, and in rushed her father and some other faggot makers, who, seeing the wolf, killed him at once. In a version traditional In a version traditional in Brittany, in the 19th century, the tale ended as nastily as can be imagined. The wolf puts the grandmother's blood in bottles and induces the unsuspecting heroine to drink her ancestress. In a version of the story that the Grimm brothers collected, however, the wolf, replete after its dinner of grandmother and little girl, falls asleep. A huntsman passing by hears the wolf's thunderous snores, goes into the house, sees the wolf in bed, guesses what has happened, and rips open the wolf's stomach with a pair of scissors. Out jumps the little girl. How dark it was inside the wolf! Followed by the exhausted but otherwise unharmed grandmother, and the wolf is then dispatched. It will be recalled that a wolf is also the villain in the somewhat similar story of the Three Little Pigs. The wolf is commonly the villain, too, in traditional fables, and frequently so in children's games such as What's the Time, Mr. Wolf, Wolf and the Lamb, and Sheep, Sheep, Come Home. The suggestion that the term wolf for a woman hunter comes from Red Riding Hood's misadventure seems improbable. The term only acquired this significance in the United States about 1930 and earlier referred to a more specialized type of human predator. The story of Red Riding Hood first appeared in English in Histories or Tales of Past Times, 1729. And here comes the story. The Little Red Riding Hood. There was once upon a time a little country girl, born in a village, the prettiest little creature that ever was seen. Her mother was beyond reason excessively fond of her, and her grandmother yet much more. This good woman caused to be made for her a little Red Riding Hood, which made her look so very pretty that everybody called her the Little Red Riding Hood. One day her mother, having made some custards, said to her, "Go, my little Biddy," for her Christian name was Biddy, "go and see how your grandmother does, for I hear she has been very ill. Carry her a custard and this little pot of butter." The Little Red Riding Hood sets out immediately to go to her grandmother, who lived in another village. As she was going through the wood, she met with Gossip Wolf, who had a good mind to eat her up, but he did not dare, because of some faggot makers that were in the forest. He asked of her whither she was going. The poor child, who did not know how dangerous a thing it is to stay and hear a wolf talk, said to him, "I am going to see my grandmama and carry her a custard pie and a little pot of butter my mamma sends her." "Does she live far off?" said the wolf. "Oh, aye," said the Little Red Riding Hood, "on the other side of the mill below yonder, at the first house in the village." "Well," said the wolf, "and I'll go and see her too. I'll go this way, and you go that, and we shall see who will be there soonest." The wolf began to run as fast as he was able, the shortest way, and the little girl went the longest, diverting herself in gathering nuts, running after butterflies, and making nosegays of all the little flowers she met with. The wolf was not long before he came to the grandmother's house, and he knocked at the door. Tock, tock. "Who's there?" "Your granddaughter, the Little Red Riding Hood," said the wolf, counterfeiting her voice, "who has brought you a custard pie and a little pot of butter Mamma sends you." The good grandmother, who was in bed because she found herself somewhat ill, cried out, "Pull the bobbin and the latch will go up." The wolf pulled the bobbin and the door opened, upon which he fell upon the good woman and ate her up in the 10th part of a moment, for he had eaten nothing for above 3 days before. After that he shut the door and went into the grandmother's bed, expecting the Little Red Riding Hood, who came some time afterwards and knocked at the door. Tock, tock. "Who's there?" "The Little Red Riding Hood," who, hearing the big voice of the wolf, was at first afraid, but believing her grandmother had got a cold and was grown hoarse, said, "It is your granddaughter, the Little Red Riding Hood, who has brought you a custard pie and a little pot of butter Mamma sends you." The wolf cried out to her, softening his voice as much as he could, "Pull the bobbin and the latch will go up." The Little Red Riding Hood pulled the bobbin, and the door opened. The wolf, seeing her come in, said to her, hiding himself under the clothes, "Put the custard and the little pot of butter upon the stool, and come into bed to me." The Little Red Riding Hood undressed herself and went into bed, where she was very much astonished to see how her grandmother looked in her night clothes. So she said to her, "Grandmother, what great arms you have got!" "It is the better to embrace thee, my pretty child." "Grandmamma, what great legs you have got!" "It is to run the better, my child." "Grandmamma, what great ears you have got!" "It is to hear the better, my child." "Grandmamma, what great eyes you have!" "It is to see the better, my child." "Grandmamma, what great teeth you have got!" "It is to eat thee up." And upon saying these words, the wicked wolf fell upon the Little Red Riding Hood and ate her up. The end. That is it. Short and sweet this morning. Have a great day.